Welcome to Outside the Cage. I'm your host, Larken Rose. The purpose of this show is to help you get your mind untangled from the deceptions and manipulations which others use to try to dominate and control you. Now, one problem with that is that when a manipulator is very good at manipulating people, the ones being manipulated don't notice. They don't even realize that they are being manipulated. In fact, if the manipulator is really good at what he does, even if someone comes along and points out to his victims what is being done to them, the victims of the manipulation often get angry and defend the one who is victimizing them. This is because the people who are good at tricking and exploiting and using and manipulating you usually will appeal to your good intentions and your virtues. They make you feel good about being used. Now, here's an example. Suppose one day you meet a guy on the street corner and he's wearing rags and he's looking like he's in really bad shape. He's begging for change. Now, he tells you that he has a wife and child and the child needs medical care and they just lost their home and they both lost their jobs and they're trying to pay for this medical care and having such a tough time and so on. And you believe him. And as a result, you give him a lot of money. And it makes you feel good to give him money. And you start seeing him every week or so and giving him more money, and he tells you it's a big help, he really appreciates it, that he doesn't know what he would do without you, and it's just so nice of you to do this for him. And so you keep feeling good about it. You feel like you're being generous, like you're being charitable and generously helping your fellow man in his time of need. And then one day your neighbor comes to you and says, "Oh yeah, that guy, he's a total fraud. He makes lots and lots of money selling that bogus story to lots and lots of people. People are gullible and they fall for it and they give him money. He's a liar. He's not even married. He doesn't have any kids. The whole thing is completely made up." Now, when your neighbor tells you this, you may very well not want to believe it. You may want to think, no, he sounded so sincere and so honest, he must be telling the truth. Why would you not want to believe it? Well, what does it mean if your neighbor's actually telling the truth? It means that whole time you thought you were being noble and generous and caring, you were just being gullible and stupid. When you thought you were helping out people in need and helping out the less fortunate, you were just giving money to a con man. And there would naturally be a reluctance to admit that, even to yourself. You don't want that to be true. You don't want to think, all that time, all that money, all that compassion, the guy just faked me out. So, if the neighbor points out to you, yeah, sorry, you've been duped. You didn't actually do anybody any good except a crook. You're not going to want to hear it. You're not going to respond well to it, probably. Not initially, anyway. Eventually, you may come to realize, oh, you were right. Now I'm really embarrassed that I ever fell for that. But you may actually get angry at your neighbor the first time he tells you, oh, that guy's a liar. What do you mean? How do you know? He really needs it. He's really... you may react viscerally at your neighbor who's trying to tell you that you've been duped, because you don't want to be duped. You don't want to have been duped. You want to be a kind, compassionate person, which is what you tried to be. It's what your intentions were. And that'll, in the end, only make you feel worse. Your goodness was used to dupe you into giving money to a con man. So that wouldn't be a fun thing to find out. So, that is how manipulators do it. That is how they use your virtues and your nobleness to feed their agenda, to rob you. They rob you because you're good. They use your goodness to rob you. That's what manipulators and con men do. Okay, so who cares? You're not gullible enough to fall for giving money to the guy in the corner who makes up this sob story. You're a little wiser than that. So who cares? Here's the point. If you vote, regardless of who you vote for, you have been manipulated and duped. If you play the game of politics at all, whether it's by campaigning or voting, running for office yourself even, or petitioning for this or that legislation or this or that candidate, you are being deceived and manipulated. Your virtues, your good intentions are being used to drag away from you your effort and your time and your money so that it can all be handed over to a bunch of con men. Now, and I say this, I don't care who you're voting for. Doesn't make any difference. When I say that, I bet your immediate reaction is to say, no, that's not true. You know, I know the other party, that other party over there that I don't like, they're a bunch of con men and liars, but not my guys. I know what I'm doing. I vote for the right people. I vote for the right agenda. I support what this country should be, and so on and so forth. Nobody's tricking me. Now, I know lots and lots of people who would respond that way, who used to believe that way. I used to believe that way. And now I realize otherwise. When I was a devout conservative and voted Republican, sort of wished they were more libertarian or more constitutionalist, but oh well, I will loyally vote Republican. I didn't think I was being duped. I saw, well, this is my team, and we're the good guys, and those guys over there, they're the dumb, stupid, bad guys who are going to ruin the world. And I don't think I would have responded well to somebody telling me, you're such a bozo. You're completely being duped. You're being faked out into betraying your own values, your own interests, the interests of everybody around you, except the politicians. So, someone had told me that, I would not have responded well, I don't think. And I don't expect you to respond well when I tell it to you. I don't expect you to take my word for it. Now, in past episodes of this show, we've gone through how democracy and political action are just sort of nice terms for perpetual warfare with your neighbor, arguing over who will get to control his neighbor and rob his neighbor by way of government, who will get to benefit from something being taken from somebody else. Well, when we come back after this break, I'm going to tell you a story. Yes, it will be Story Hour here on Outside the Cage. But this story has a very drastically important point to it. And I bet this story will make you think. So stay right there. We will be back right after this break with more Outside the Cage. Welcome back to Outside the Cage. I'm your host, Larken Rose. As I promised before the break, it's story time. So here goes. Once upon a time, in the early 1800s, there was a man named Mr. Jones who owned a cotton plantation in the southern U.S. And he had dozens of slaves who worked on that plantation. Now one day, Mr. Jones called all his slaves together, and he gave the following speech. It's time for things to change around here. Up until today, you've lived your lives as slaves. You've been my property. Well, it's time for that to change. And after hearing that, the slaves looked around at each other, and some were excited and some were just sort of stunned. But Mr. Jones continued. From now on, this plantation will be run for the benefit of all of us, not just me. You will all have input into how things work around here. From now on, every week at this time, there will be a meeting right here where any of you can come forward and make suggestions or speak out about problems or complaints that you might have. Now, of course, this was completely unlike anything the slaves had known before, and this seemed unreal to them. But they were listening very intently. And Mr. Jones went on. Of course, a plantation needs organization and management. We can't just have everyone doing whatever they want. There would be chaos. There wouldn't be any food. We wouldn't have any cotton to sell. There wouldn't be anything coming in. Nothing would get done. The plantation would completely fall apart. And obviously, we can't have that. So, there will still be rules, of course, and I'll still be in charge, because I'm the only one here with any experience at how to run a plantation. So, I'll still be in charge, but now I will be representing your interests, not just mine. And I will make my decisions accordingly. And I will lay down the rules of the plantation accordingly. You'll be free, but you'll each still have your own duties and responsibilities. And it's important, it's very important, that you each continue to work hard for the benefit of all of us. Because from now on, what we all do, each one of us, it's for the common good. It's for the group as a whole. Now, you'll still need to follow the rules, and there will still be consequences if you don't. But these rules will keep this plantation productive and peaceful, and that's going to benefit all of us. Not just me, but all of you. So now, we're in this together. We're all going to work together for our common collective good. Now, after saying this, Mr. Jones unfurled a large banner, and it had a big, colorful, intricate design on it. And there was a big red letter J in the middle of it. This, Mr. Jones explained, this will be the new symbol of this plantation. The symbol of cooperation and hard work and working together to achieve peace and freedom and prosperity for all of us. And after he said that, all the slaves cheered. Now, after his speech, Mr. Jones brought out a piece of paper, and he read from it a couple dozen rules, which were mainly about when the slaves were expected to work, what they were allowed to do, where they were allowed to go, what the punishments were for breaking the various rules, what clothes and food rations each slave would receive, and so on. There were rules against fighting. There were rules against stealing from other workers. There was a different rule about stealing from the plantation, and so on, that sort of thing. And after going through the rules, Mr. Jones then described the new duties of each slave. But he was careful to point out that from now on, they wouldn't be referred to as slaves. They would be referred to as the workers of the plantation. And so each of them was told what his new duty would be, his new duties and responsibilities. Now, all in all, the duties and the responsibilities of each of the workers were pretty much what they had been before. And the rules were pretty much the same rules the master had issued before. But now, because of how persuasive and eloquent Mr. Jones was, the workers felt a lot better about their situation. And the popularity of Mr. Jones soared among the workers. And they had nothing but good things to say about him